Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacy.
And my name is Phil Thompson, and we are your hosts today, as we are every week for our Church Solutions Podcast. It's good to have everyone with us, and we are a tech company called JSL Solutions. And what do we do, Steve?
Well, let's see. We serve ministries. We serve ministries with a few tech products, streamingchurch.tv, Church App Live, and myfleck.com, and we serve our local ministries. And we serve ministries through this podcast, sharing our vast amounts of experience with, actually we do have some pretty good experience.
Well, yeah, that just means we're really old, I guess.
I guess. We've been around and been there and done that, So
today, so as you said, Steve, we do talk about tech-related things. We talk about leadership-related issues. We talk about all sorts of things involving church. And today we're going to talk about...
So we're going to go over 10 ways to get people involved. This is one of the primary challenges, is to get people involved.
Well, it really is. And anybody, if you're listening to this podcast, you are either a leader in your church, some capacity, maybe a pastor, maybe a volunteer, and you know that trying to get people involved is definitely a challenge at times. The old adage, what is it? 20% of the people do 80%.
Oh yeah, that's very true. I've seen that very much.
It is very true. We've both been involved in leadership. So we're going to talk about 10 ways to get people involved. So here are some things we will just go over. And this is involving, you've got different ministries, different needs in your church, different things going on. How do you get these people involved? So the first one, we've got all sorts of things here.
Yeah, some ideas, some tips. So first one we had on our list is just special announcements.
Special announcements. Now, I am kind of the announcement guy at my church, and when we say announcements, a lot of churches will have, they have some music, and then somewhere in their service they'll have announcements. Sometimes before the service starts, sometimes after the music, sometimes after the sermon, sometimes all three places. And I always push for not making a lot of announcements. I'm real big on that. We've talked about that before because, you lose people, and I think we've even talked about criteria for announcements,
right?
And you really want to keep it.
Yeah, and with this, I would think that one of the things you want to do is what you don't want to do is just get up and say, "We need your help. Please volunteer."
Right.
You want to say, "Hey, we need another guy that to drive the soundboard, somebody that knows how to turn knobs and has ears." Get very specific about the opportunities and just make them quick and brief. With a special announcement, but just make it very specific and detail oriented.
And also what I would add to this, and I would add, if you've got the capacity in your church to show some visual things on a screen or screens, we have a couple screens at my church. I think your church has 2 or 3 screens probably, or did anyhow. I would get a graphic. I would dress up a graphic for whatever that is. So you take your example of audio. You need somebody to help in audio. Maybe even talk about, what our vision here at this church is. We want to have quality, presentations. And if you're interested in being a part of our tech team, and then maybe have a graphic on the tech team, and then maybe a way to contact a person on that graphic, maybe, one of the leaders' email addresses, or...
Because what it's going to do is, I think it's going to spark a connection with somebody, and depending on what it is, if it was somebody, I'd like to be able to turn knobs on a big soundboard, or I would like to teach second graders about the Bible with picture stories, or whatever it may be. It's going to form a connection. You want to make a specific announcement.
And putting a graphic in there, it spices up the presentation a little bit, even though it may only be 30 seconds or less, hopefully. It at least spices up for people sitting there going, I have no interest in this thing. Yeah. But at least the graphic pops up, and so it's not like they're just kind of sitting there daydreaming, while you ramble on about something. So consider that. Consider special announcements, but I would not do that all the time.
Right.
Just occasionally. There's other things we're going to talk about here.
Right,
So,
exactly.
speaking of which,
So number 2 on the list is Facebook advertising.
My church has a Facebook page, and they're involved in it. They really are. Now, not everybody is, but we've talked about social media before, and how I think you should find something that your
Right.
people connect with and then use it.
So this is not to be confused with actually Facebook paid advertising.
Yeah,
this is just using your Facebook
to
page
promote.
as a means to promote some.
Right. Yeah. Advertising. One of these days we'll cover Facebook advertising. So that's I probably shouldn't have put the word advertising in the notes here. Sorry about that.
Because that would be a very interesting way.
Well,
you have a paid ad out there to.
You know what? You could. I know some churches that look for musicians that way.
Oh yeah.
And they will they'll pay an ad to find musicians.
Yeah, kind of makes sense for a unique capability.
Yeah. But what we're talking about here, honestly, is if you are doing what we've told you in the past, and that is, really working your church's Facebook page, and really, keeping it up to date and putting little things in there, you could certainly put something where you have a need or something to get people involved on your Facebook page. And again, I would add a graphic to it.
Right.
I would use graphics. It's so easy.
And
I
would be specific as well.
Absolutely.
So identify some needs, some things that people could connect with.
Right. Absolutely. So as we move on down the list here on 10 ways to get your people involved in your church, bulletin is certainly if you still use a bulletin, it's still a good way to do that if it's done right. And again, not a long paragraph, but something that's short with contact information.
Yeah, and again, the visual would also be a good idea to have that as well.
I really do think so. And speaking of which, as we move through this a little bit, and this probably would be number 11 as we work down the list here, newsletter. I hope that people are using a newsletter that is a good fit for your church, because you really can, if you like with MailChimp, we've talked about MailChimp is a good way to put out your newsletter. There's Constant Contact. There's several of them out there that give you the ability to put together a really nice looking newsletter. If you add graphics to it, you can put together a really weekly newsletter or monthly newsletter, and really you can dress it up good, capture email addresses, and send stuff out. And again, what the main theme and what I've been talking about the last few points we've brought up is graphics. Right. Get yourself a graphic or something. Photoshop's out there. There's GIMP. There's other sources out there as well.
So this is you're talking initially the bulletin that as you hand out as people arrive at church,
right,
would have that information. And then the other avenue would be going the newsletter route.
Newsletter route with graphics. And again, you want some details, but I would get too detail oriented in some of these things. I would keep it short and concise. And people can always, make sure you have good contact information. So if somebody is interested in it, they have an email address they can respond to. And hopefully your leaders will check their email.
All right.
So as we move on down the list here on 10 ways to get people involved.
So the handout flyers, I saw this on the list, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I actually hadn't thought of this before, but you're talking about handing out flyers not as people arrive, but maybe as people leave the church.
Yeah, we found this. I found this to be, you go to certain stores, grocery stores, or certain places. A lot of times you're walking out of the business, they give you a flyer.
Right.
And honestly, most of the time I look at it because they're trying to sell me something. So I usually just toss it or I don't take it. But in this case, again, the theme of this whole thing so far has been, putting something that looks nice together. Or the graphics well put together, and in a church, you're not necessarily selling something. You just want people to know what's going on. So I think it could work. I mean, these are suggestions. I'm not saying you take all these and do them. You may not like them all, but it's an idea.
Right. And I think one of the things, I don't know if we mentioned it in this, is you want to also, people will get involved as it's something they want to do. It's something that's good for them. So you want to present the aspect of, hey, you've got grandkids or you have kids yourself, and working with the kids is going to bring you some joy. You have to be there on Sunday and work through the kids and put up with some stuff. But overall, you kind of step back at the end of the day and go, my day was made better because I participated and helped out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
just listened to something very interesting on the way over to your home office, and they were talking about happiness, and they did a study, and they took and interviewed a group of people and said, what makes you happy? And said, well, I enjoy playing video games, I like going to a movie, I like doing this sort of thing. So they took half of this group, and they said, okay, you got 2-3 hours, and I want you to go do what makes you happy. And then they took the other half of the group, and they said, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in service. You're going to go help out at a homeless shelter. You're going to go feed some people. You're going to do some things. And then they brought the people back together and kind of compared notes. And they basically found that those that were assigned to the service project were much more happy than those that spent the couple hours playing video games or whatever. And to the point where those that were playing video games were like, oh, I missed out. I would have rather gone down and helped out with, whatever the service was. So it was pretty interesting.
Which it kind of probably ties into something down the list here a little ways, and that is, teaching a series on servanthood. Because I think that what you just said and what you just listened to, the podcast apparently you listened to, was I think I absolutely agree with that. I think you do get fulfillment when you serve other people and help other people.
I think people, and a lot of it is that people don't anticipate it. If they had said, oh, we're going to have you sign up for a service thing where you're going to go do this, or we're going to have you sign up to go watch a movie, more people would go, well, I'll go sign up to watch the movie group. But when the day's over and you're kind of looking back, you said, that was a lot more rewarding and made me a lot happier. So you want to try to farm that aspect of it, that it's not only that the church may need your service, but you may need to serve the church as to help to make your day better.
Yeah, absolutely. Very fulfilling. In fact, which again ties into this other point, teach a series on servanthood. So, maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're saying, well, I'm not the pastor. I don't teach all the time, but maybe you could suggest that to your leadership team, because I know, like when I went off and started a church years ago, we had instant growth. We grew and we had all these needs. And we needed people to help, and so I thought, I'm going to teach on serving, and I put a series together on servanthood. I don't remember what I called it, and it really did help. It really helped people understand, the meaning of serving and how they can actually, what they have, their gifts, their talents can add to something. And there's almost always something that you are gifted in that could help your ministry, your church.
Yeah, and it's going to be rewarding for you to serve, and people may not anticipate that.
Absolutely. So that was on the list. So we just scratched 2 of those off. The other thing is word of mouth, which actually you've kind of clarified earlier before we did this podcast, reaching out directly to people.
Yeah, I found that's probably the most. I mean, word of mouth is important so that people hear about it. But I think the most effective way is to walk up to somebody and put your arm on your shoulder and say, hey, I think you'd make a great, whatever it is, XYZ.
Sure.
You'd make a great 4th grade children's worker. Yeah. Or you'd make a great, soundboard intern.
Usher.
Or in the case I was talking about, I was on the board and was working alongside a guy that was already working within the church. I said, you would make a great board member. Yeah. So...
Yeah, and I think that's true. And what I used to do was because I've pretty much never been in a church setting where I wasn't in leadership to some capacity. So usually I'm in the back, unless I was teaching or involved in something on the platform. I would be usually in the back of the church, directing something or running something. And so a lot of times I would be standing back there and I literally would kind of scan the crowd and think, I know that guy or I know that gal. I bet you she would be a good fit for this, and sometimes I was right, sometimes I was wrong, but I would do exactly what you said. I just go up to him, talk to him and say, hey, would you be interested in being involved in some area of ministry?
And that's really is the most effective way to do it, because people, they feel a personal connection.
Right.
Because they were asked. It's going to kind of bring people across the line. Some of the things we're talking about here, people may not respond to a flyer or announcement or whatever, that sort of thing. But when somebody specifically says, hey, you'd be great if you would do this.
Well, I know your pastor, Jeff Love, used to say, if you want to make a friend, ask them to help you with something. Mm-hmm. And, he was talking even just in a personal deal, but I have found that's true. When you ask somebody to help you, whether it's, maybe not help you move, but maybe help you do something. Right. I used to have a pickup truck for years, so I was always
so
asked
lots
to
of
help
friends,
move.
huh?
Yeah, but asking somebody to help you with something, even on a personal basis, many times that can create an avenue for a relationship that ends up being a good positive thing. And I think it's the same way at church. When you ask somebody to serve or help, it helps them get connected more. That's one of the things I always used to teach in servanthood was it helps people get connected, because unless people really make friends at your church, if they're newer people and they're just coming, if they don't make some kind of friendship relationship somehow or another within a period of a couple months or so, usually they're going to disappear. Mm-hmm. Because what keeps people coming to church is relationships.
Right.
And we're not, this isn't the motives here I don't think are impure. I think you can again help people in their life by serving.
Yeah, that reminds me of, we moved into our home actually quite a while ago, but one of our new neighbors he really stood out because I was doing something in the backyard and he just came over and was wanting to help out. Yeah. I was thinking, that's kind of interesting. So yeah, it can work. And he was aggressive with it as well. I mean, he was willing to, hey, he's out there doing something, I'm going to go over and see if I can help him.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so word of mouth and / reach out directly to people. I think both those things help a lot. And then the other one is something that you may not have thought about before. And again, this falls in the realm of social media, mm-hmm. and it's Instagram.
Right.
Becoming more and more popular.
Yes.
And I think, again, as the theme we've been talking about for the most part has been, graphics or pictures that look really good. You can Instagram different things going on at your church,
right, and
post them. And again, this is going to work mainly on, you're going to have to advertise you have an Instagram account to your church. You're going to have to tell people, hey, check out our Instagram, account. And there's more and more people getting on Instagram. So again, people will check out your Instagram. They usually get notified if there's a post or something you've done. You could post, maybe it's the landscaping team or something, post some nice pictures of landscaping. And again, it's just another source.
Hashtag how to get involved or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So again, just a little maybe out of the box thinking here. All right. So we already covered teaching a series on servanthood would help. And here's something that I do. I don't know. I think your church does it too. We have a little pre-service video that we run, and we run a pre-service video before and after the service. And what it really amounts to is pretty much just pictures. I mean, literally, here's how I do it. I just use Movie Maker. It's a free program. And so I will put the images on about announcements we have. So every announcement we do has an image connected to it, some kind of a graphic or image.
Right. So you roll that prior to the service.
I just roll it, and I will put text in. I
think it's a very common practice.
Yeah, we're having a harvest party coming up, and so we have a harvest party image, and the date and the time.
Right.
And we actually have music in the background too, but you can run those things for your announcements, number one. And number two, when you have a need in an area of the church, you can make a slide for that.
Throw it in the mix and
throw it right in the mix and run it before your service, because you got people walking in, and there's some of them are early, and then you have people a lot of times hanging around after the services are done. They're mm-hmm. hanging around, grabbing somebody, talking, and you've got these things projected. We have it projected in several different areas, and I think, again, your church does the same thing. I think you've got it in the lobby that's projected, on the TV. So
and we actually stream it before and after the services too. So
that's true. You do on the streaming video part. So so again, just another way to let people know what's going on out there.
Right. Exactly.
All right. What's next on our list?
So next on our list, posters and signs displayed around the church.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So,
your church does a great job at this. I have walked into, and your church used to be my church, but I would walk into the men's bathroom
oh yeah,
and stand there at the urinal
doing your thing, huh?
and looking at the wall in front of me, and there is a nice poster
Little flyer,
picture
yeah.
flyer and you see this in restaurants,
Yeah, restaurants and bars and that sort of thing, yeah.
Not that I go in any bars, but you'll see this in different places, and they're advertising something for the restaurant or the bar,
Or they'll put whatever.
some event,
Yeah, like Chili's. Is that a bar or is that a restaurant?
I don't
But
know.
they'll throw the sports page up in the
Exactly.
bathroom.
So really, and a live church you go to in Tucson does a nice job at this. There's little things that they've mounted to the wall, and they can slip these flyers in and out,
Right.
promoting certain things going on. Now, I don't know what the gals have in their restroom because I don't go in there, but
Probably very similar.
Similar, I would think. They don't stand at a urinal, but there's different.
But when you got some people, you got some time, you got a few minutes, might as well preoccupy them.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good idea. It's kind of borrowing from the restaurant and the industry, but that area, when you said we did a great job, I was originally going, I don't remember, and then you mentioned that. Oh yeah, that is a key place.
And you can also do posters too. If it's something, you could put bigger posters up different places in your facility as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the key to this, as we keep saying, is, put something together that looks decent.
Right.
And honestly, some of you might be listening to this podcast going, well, I don't have that ability. Well, you know what? We'll have to talk about this sometime, but there are some free resources out there for, there's iStock Photo, but that costs money usually. But there's some other ones out there, and they escape me off the top of my head, that you could use that are available. So you could use some graphics. You can grab some stuff, put some things together. And again, a lot of what I use is just paint.
Yeah.
And
Dollar Photo is another that I'd heard of.
Which one?
Dollar Photo.
Dollar Photos, okay.
Which kind of gives the impression it's $1. It is $1 a photo, but they also have a subscription model with it. So
kind of like the dollar store or whatever. It's more than $1. But and again, there's GIMP out there that is, software that's free, and then there's Adobe Photo Premiere and all that stuff that costs money. But again, you can put together some nice stuff with minimal effort and put it all around the church or your facility, whatever it might be, and it can really make a difference. So the last one I put on this list, do you have something else to add?
No, that was it.
Like the last thing I put on this deal was, how to get people more involved. Have an interview process. And the reason I put that on there was sometimes it's good to do that if the situation lends itself to that, where you can actually sit down with somebody and talk to them a little bit more, especially if you have something that's more of a qualified need. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but again, I want to be careful that I don't make this too hard, because you don't want to chase people off.
Right. But a qualified need maybe we need a new bass player for the band. Right.
Yeah. So audition would be
an interview / audition, that sort of thing.
Yeah. When I used to do worship teams, I had everybody and their brother come up to me saying, "Can I sing?" And some of them couldn't sing very well. So we always had auditions.
Right.
But with children's workers, probably would be good. To have an interview process for your children's workers. Newer families today are very cautious about, who they let watch their kids, even in church situations. So I think that would be good. But the other thing too, and the other side of the coin to that is that, you don't necessarily need to have somebody that's really committed. They might be a new believer. They might not even be a believer, and they're coming to your church. There could be some places they could serve. And I know some people might be thinking, oh my gosh, we might let somebody that's not a Christian be involved in our church. Well, again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When you make a connection with somebody, it changes their life.
Right. You can disciple. I think there's many testimonies, I think, out there of people that got involved before they became a Christian. They became a Christian through the process of being involved.
Yeah, I saw this happen when I was the senior pastor. I actually saw this happen. I had people involved in different things, and their Christianity, they may not have been a Christian at the time, but they became one later. Mm-hmm. And everybody's on a journey anyhow. So when you have people on a journey, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell where they're at. So again, I qualify this by saying in some situations, you want to make sure they're committed. You want to make sure you have a good understanding and they have a good understanding. But also there may be some situations where they may not. Maybe they want to help out with a coffee ministry or something. If you have coffee, you have to be a committed Christian to help out in the coffee ministry. You get what I'm saying? So again,
exactly.
Some thoughts to say. So that pretty much wraps it up for my notes.
Looks good to me too.
Folks, if you have anything to add to this or maybe some disagreements, we would love to hear from you. You can check us out on iTunes, Church Solutions Podcast. Give us a review. Give us some feedback there. We're on there. The other platform is we have a little blog called newmediaministries.tv, where you can also check out our resources on streamingchurch.tv under the resource menu. We're on YouTube as well. I think it's under my name under YouTube. I think Phil Thompson Live. But we post the podcast all sorts of different places, and so we'd love to hear from you. And give us some feedback. And again, if you have something you'd like us to talk about, a topic, by all means, suggest it.
Yeah, fire us an email.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And the email is support@streamingchurch.tv. So, all right, that about does it. So we're in my office this time. Last week, I had a terrible time in your office because your cat, allergies.
My wife's cat.
Your wife's cat. See, you keep throwing Tina under the bus. But you like that cat. I've seen you. You like that cat a lot. So I have a dog here, and you were telling me right before the podcast that my microphone here, your microphone, smelled like my dog. So was that a touche?
I guess so. It's fine.
It's just the dog. I probably laid it down for a moment and the dog sniffed it or something. I don't know. Who knows? Or maybe the dog peed on it.
I happened to stick my nose on the microphone.
All right, folks. We appreciate you very much listening to our podcast, and we appreciate if we can help you in any way with streaming video, mobile apps, websites, church management stuff, or anything else. Give us a call or let us know. Support@streamingchurch.tv. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
Thanks for listening. Have a great day. We will catch you next week for another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.